This is a small chapter in a larger story, and it ends with men of the Scots Guards regiment gathered around a campfire in Kenya. It's a small scene on the global stage of foreign policy and military intervention. But this is where we end. To begin, let's go back to a turning point in an ongoing conflict.
The terrifying moments when gunmen went on the rampage.
Gunmen walked into Nairobi's Westgate Mall and murdered shoppers in cold blood. 67 people died in the ensuing siege.
The government has portrayed the attack as a doomed attempt by al-Shabab to divide a united Kenya.
Al-Shabab, the Somali militant group linked to al-Qaeda, currently fighting the Kenyan army.
Kenya remains deeply entrenched in the global war on terror.
A small British army camp in central Kenya, an African outpost for 21 soldiers. Thornbush security, privacy non-existent, the heat extreme. And it's home to the Scots Guards for 2 weeks as they train Kenyan forces for operations in Somalia.
Most infantry soldiers enjoy living like this. It's quite a simple way to live. The hardest or the most difficult thing that we have to put up with is coming straight from British wintertime, straight into 35 plus degrees, not really getting the time to acclimatise. The camp itself is austere, but it's pretty much built into our DNA. The flexibility of, the standard infanteer, and I think they really enjoy being in small sort of teams, particularly when they're sort of training Indigenous forces.
This camp is a small physical footprint of a larger, years-long UK contribution to support Kenya's military role in the African Union mission in neighboring Somalia. And that mission is tasked with combating the Islamic terrorist group al-Shabab. With Kenyan casualties mounting in Somalia and the security threat from al-Shabab remaining fluid, British units are here on request to help train Kenyan troops. Specifically, the Brits bring with them lessons learned in Iraq and Afghanistan in combating insurgencies. That is, how to counter the tactics of guerrilla warfare.
Coordinate the flank, sir. The al-Shabab and the Taliban have very similar tactics, and it's all what sort of can be described as guerrilla warfare. We know all these skills, and this is what they've asked for their training for Somalia, so we can pass that on from our experiences in Afghanistan, Iraq, etc. The platoon commander, sections 1 and 2, are going to head off to the killing group, and they're going to split off. Or the vehicle is going to approach from left to right as we look at the killing area.
This is the first time cameras have filmed these courses. The UK spends £300,000 to train 1,000 Kenyan troops each year.
We sprung the ambush, and everyone is going to engage their enemy.
Okay, perfect. At the same time, you're going to say single shot, automatic fire, single shot, automatic fire, okay, to each individual.
For this group of 72 Kenyan soldiers, the exercises aren't for a hypothetical conflict, but for imminent deployment into Somalia.
They are rotating round, so they'll always have someone in Somalia in country on operations. The al-Shabaab will offer a real threat, and if we can give the skills to the KDF to focus on that threat themselves, then that obviously that sort of mitigate our forces having to be on the ground.
The African Union mission in Somalia, known as AMISOM, is officially a peacekeeping operation. But casualties suggest peace is being hard-won in Somalia rather than kept. Kenya and other AMISOM contributing nations refuse to publish official casualty numbers. But payments made to the families of soldiers killed in Somalia reveal that approximately 2,000 AMISOM peacekeepers have died on deployment.
When we are deployed in Somalia, It is not a peacekeeping, but it is a fighting. The enemy, those are called al-Shabab. They don't use any tactics to fight. They do fight guerrilla tactics, and their wars is not well planned. And for us, we have acquired techniques how to plan war and how to fight.
3,700 Kenyan soldiers are deployed in Somalia, and together with those guarding the border, it's estimated that 1/3 of the Kenyan Defense Force is on active deployment. That would be an enormous burden for any military, let alone one with limited resources.
But relief for Kenya's stretched forces may come soon. Not through military victory, but rather because their African Union mission is set to end in 2021. Peace in Somalia or no peace. So, despite learning new short-term tactics, there are long-term strategic questions about just where all this training has been going and what comes next in the fight against al-Shabab.
The African Union is withdrawing AMISOM troops from Somalia. And after all this time spent, resources spent there, we've still not won the war against the al-Shabab. We've not pacified Somalia. So are we walking out of Somalia just like the way the Americans walked out of Vietnam? This is the picture that is coming out very clearly. It means the region is not going to experience any peace.
George Muzamali is a former Kenyan government security agent who witnessed al-Shabab's tactics on the Somalian border.
You cannot put a head on al-Shabab and say these are the al-Shabab fighters. They are amongst the civilian population, and it's quite difficult for any conventional army to deal with this situation without now coming in with other issues, bringing in other challenges of human rights violations. But the leadership of al-Shabab can be brought on the table, and then they can discuss things out and come up with a solution that is not military. We cannot deny it's a badly kept secret that the al-Shabab are recruiting within the borders of Kenya. Looking at the economic situation in Kenya, we have so many young people that are unemployed, and to them this became an option. And I think our youth were coerced and were motivated into joining the al-Shabab in droves.
16 million Kenyans live below the poverty line. Youth unemployment hovers at 35%. So for young Kenyans with limited opportunities, radical ideologies can be seductive.
Kenya's Muslim community is roughly 10% of the population. It's nearly 4.5 million people. It's a pretty sizable minority to have properly integrated into the fabric of the country. And so it's in public mixed religion schools like this one that teachers are advocating for Muslim students to openly practice their faith, create dialogue with other students, and in so doing, find positive alternatives to the violence of extremist ideologies.
When we keep quiet about what is happening around, about these ideologies of extremist groups, how young people are lured, I think if we don't mentor them, somebody else will get an opportunity to mentor them, but in a very negative way.
Ayub Mohamud is a leader of the group Teachers Against Violent Extremism.
In as much as we have the military, the security and the policing aspect, which is important, I also feel we can also have the soft line where students can be engaged on what's happening around them. They're taught about the ideologies of these groups and the havoc they are causing. Muslims, they respect people of other faiths. Muslims respect neighbors. Sometimes there might be a few people who are criminals who want to hijack, who want to give a very bad name to Islam and Muslims. All those things go against the teachings of Islam. Sometimes the people who are doing most of these killings are mostly young people like you. And it's the young people like you who are cheated. But the much I know is that Muslims are people who are peace-loving and who bring people together.
I was one off the patrol now out the riverbed.
Up in the shoulder! From the shoulder!
Army expertise exported.
The doorway, sir. This doorway. It's unmanned. Get someone on this doorway.
But with their current mission in Somalia ending next year, What will training these troops achieve against a still very present al-Shabab? Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Hipkins oversees all British training courses in Kenya.
It is a rare week, I think it is fair to say, where African soldiers on peace support operations inside Somalia do not take casualties, and relatively significant casualties on occasions. So as it stands, it is my feeling that in the next 18 months, my role here and the use of STTTs, including the Scots Guards, is unlikely to change significantly.
Kenya's future operations in Somalia may be unclear, and a military victory there still out of reach. But the UK's military trainers are set to man this camp for the foreseeable future, sitting on the edge of an unresolved conflict 4,000 miles from home. Christopher Bobyn, BBC News, Kenya.